Did you get that? Did you get that? Hi, everybody. This is Barbara Sanders, and this is Sacred Metamorphoses, which is a new YouTube channel that I just started this summer in 2024. And I'm so excited to introduce Vicki Spray, who I'll introduce in a moment. But first, I want to do a blessing if we can. So if everyone who's listening would breathe like Vicki and I are going to be breathing, and just breathe in warm and fresh energy and exhale any toxins or any attachments that are not yours, that don't belong to you. Just release them out of your fingertips and toes as we settle into this conversation with Vicki and me. May we share our wisdom, knowledge, and bright glow for everyone. May we channel what we have received so that others can witness and become part of this evolution through transformation and light, through sacred metamorphoses, learning to better embody grace as human beings. Embody grace. May we be open and willing to participate in this communal sharing so that we can help with the healing of humanity and all living beings, our planet, the cosmos, and so on. We release so that we can receive, and so it is, and so it shall be. And if you're joining for the first time, please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you'd like and become part of our conversation. Thank you. Okay, this is Vicki Spray. And Vicki is an unusual being in my life because I didn't meet her until 2024, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I want this to be an exercise in intuition and guidance, and for you to learn to follow yours. I've been pretty good at that in my life, but this time was interesting. So I've been on a couple of women's retreats at Mother Ocean Retreats, which is in St. George Island, run by Shelley Gomez as the owner of the property. Shelley's wonderful, and I had attended two, I think, Tammy Roth retreats there last year, or maybe one this year and one last year. Anyway, I attended a few retreats with her. And so I signed up for this practitioner's retreat, St. George Island, with Mother Ocean Retreats. And I wasn't sure why, except I'd heard Tammy went the year before, and I found out Tammy wasn't going. And what this weekend was for us to share our services with each other. And of course, I did a little dance thing. And then there was this person here, Vicki Spray, who asked if people wanted to sign up for spiritual counseling. And my first response was, oh, ugh, because I'm a preacher's kid, right? I've never been to a spiritual counselor before. And, but I was open and willing, as we will say. And a friend of mine that I met there, Inga, said, oh, go ahead. She's great. And I'm an adventurer, so I like to do things that are interesting. So I signed up for the last morning that I was there to talk with Vicki. It changed my life. And I would like to call Vicki my teacher with a capital T. Mm-hmm. Yes, she's a spiritual counselor, and she is a healer mentor, and she's my teacher and counselor. And thank you so much for doing this. I can't wait to see what we get into here. If you'd like to say anything more about yourself, please do.
Well, there's not much to say. Thank you for that very, very much, Barbara. When I first started this work a number of years ago now, I said to Source, you bring them to me. And so whenever someone like you come into my life, I know from whence you came. And so I just follow that.
And what I did say about you is when I first met you and saw you a day or two at the retreat, I remember thinking there's a gleam in her eye and she's a bit of a character. That I could connect with. So thank you for that. You intrigued me.
I'm just doing what you're doing.
Yes.
You know, or really, that's all I'm doing. I'm just doing what people like you are doing, and that is that we're removing the things that have gotten in the way of us having a direct communication with Source. Yes. And those things are deep. They're very, very deep. And we need healers. We need spiritual counselors. You know, spiritual counseling, you mentioned that, you know, when I first started, you know, I think I'm still might be the only one in Tallahassee who does. I think there might be others who kind of call themselves spiritual counselors, call them, meaning the language. But you know, it's really kind of a relatively new thing, and it's because so many people have left organized religion, that they feel like there's nowhere to go now. And so the spiritual counselors and the healers and the mediums and the mystics need to come forward. And we are, like yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to say that I've been to lots of therapists. I've had lots of training. I was a psychotherapist for 30 years and also participated in lots of alternative practices like breath work and all sorts of things and yoga and, you know, all those kinds of things. But I have to say, and I'm not trying to aggrandize you or put you on a pedestal that you'll have to fall off of necessarily, because I know that will happen. But, and I'm trying not to idealize you. But when I went to sit down with Vicki at this retreat, we were in a little bitty room and she started talking and asking me questions. And I was like, oh, this is different. And it was different. And so I continued to talk with Vicki throughout the year. Um, and I won't be able to describe exactly what you do, but what you said reminded me of this, which is it's about core wounding and something that with all the practices I've ever done, haven't quite gotten me into that space until I met you. And I really appreciate that.
Well, I had to do
It was
it. I
hard. It
had,
was hard and horrible too. It's
it's
hard.
hard and horrible, and and you know, I'm amazed that anybody does it, frankly, you know, and that's why, you know, we have to have 30 years of, you know, slowly moving into this depth. And sometimes we have to have some really, really hard hits. You know, it really still is true in the human collective that we have to have the cancer or the car wreck or the divorce or the sickness or the loss of jobs for us to finally surrender to the thing that's been whispering to us for all of our lives. And it's just the way it is. I believe that you and I are living in a time, I know we're living in a time where the hard hits don't have to hit so hard, because these kids they have YouTube now, and they have self-help groups, and they have you know, realization groups, and their mindset is toward therapy. You know, when I was growing up, the only people who went to therapy were the Hollywood people. And you know, I didn't see there was a whole lot of benefit from what I could see from a distance. You know, so and my knowing is that to get down to the real healing, the real emancipation, it has to be done spiritually, because that's the issue. That's the problem.
I agree with you
Yeah.
totally. And I grew up in Mississippi. So when you said the Hollywood people went to therapy, I was like, well, the only people as I grew up in the 1960s that I knew went to therapy were crazy. I mean, really crazy.
Right.
They had to go to the state hospital far away
Right.
to have even outpatient counseling or psychiatry, which is
Yes.
crazy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Women
So,
going
yeah.
through menopause.
Oh,
People having spiritual awakenings. You know,
yes. And it looking psychotic
exactly.
got them hospitalized rather than understanding anything about what they might
That's
be.
right. That's right. And that's changing. It's changed quite a bit. And the spiritual counselors have to really kind of train ourselves in a lot of ways. And we have to have a big teacher with a T, a big T. And surrendering to that is not, spiritual counselors are as just resistant as normal humans, you know, until we're not, because it becomes so painful to be resistant. It's so painful. And that's why it takes so much pain to get there. And yet, you know, I remember when I first started, I don't think I said this to you. I remember saying to Source, you know, help me give them the carrot. You know, they're sitting in my office, they're sitting on my couch, but I'm inside, my human self is saying, let me give them a carrot. And this is what I heard. The carrot is within. So
Right. Right. It's not up to you. It's not up to you at all. I want to clarify.
you know, it is.
Let me clarify. When I said it was hard, it is hard and horrible work. Yes,
It
but
is.
it's
Yes.
Vicki always says, are you open and willing? And
Yeah.
like, do you want to go deeper? And if you
Yeah.
say yes, watch out. And
Yeah.
it's the benefit is glorious and transformative and has, it's the right time of life for me to be doing this
Yes.
right now. Some people are
Yeah.
not there, and I wasn't any year before this one.
I
I
love
was
it.
not ready. And Vicki, I think you said, "You're right. It's like a fruit about to burst out of its skin because it's so ripe." And some people are like that, and others aren't, and we can help them along the way with wherever they are. Vicki does too, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In my semi-retirement years now, I'll still take new clients and I'll keep the clients I have as long as they do the work. But the days of dragging people it's not beneficial to anybody, especially right now.
Mhm.
There has to be a willingness, there has to be an openness, there has to be a readiness for clearing out the thing that's killing you. And when I say killing you, I don't mean like really killing you, but it's killing the life force that wants to flourish, the life force that wants to write a book or start a YouTube or start a podcast or start a business. That is what's being strangled off. And that is devastating. That is a devastating feeling, to walk on this earth feeling this creative, imaginative energy and not have that expression. That's hard. That's what's hard.
Absolutely. And as you say, it's at some point it becomes not okay to do that. And spirit,
Yeah.
whatever we want to call spirit, by the way, divine feminine, all sorts of things we can call source or spirit. There's a calling that
Yeah.
just it's so elevated that it's like you can't not do this. And I'm not trying to be all wacky or anything talking like that, and I'm here in the public talking about that, which I've never done before. But it's at a point like I could be, and I have been comfortable, pretty happy in my life, not huge amounts of trauma, but the trauma that everybody goes through, which is normal and real, besides all the extra traumas people go through. And I could stay right where I am and be comfortable and
Yeah.
satisfied and content, almost.
Almost.
And I knew that almost needed a little work.
That's the carrot. When Source said the carrot is within them, then the onus is off my back. All I'm doing now is somewhat being a challenge, a channel for whatever. I joke with people. The divine saw how you put your undies on this morning. The divine knows you. The divine knows everything about you. Knows everything. There's nothing that is hidden. And we are always welcomed with love. And we're always welcomed with a wisdom. Always. It cannot not do that because we are it. We are it. It can't turn itself away. So
And,
the work is important.
and probably before I met you, I didn't distinguish between human and spirit as much. And Vicki, I'll put it in the comments, but she has a website called www.embracinghumans.com.
Yeah.
Because that's another gift you gave me is I am human and I got to
Right.
live here. I could have gone off into the spiritual world and stayed there, by the
Yeah.
way, I call it spiritual bypass, and not
Yes.
really deal with humans anymore because it's difficult to deal with
It
humans.
is. It is.
My pets, my dogs are wonderful. And though you helped challenge me to realize that's part of what we're here for. I've heard that before, but we are here for some reasons, I think, in meaning and purpose. And after I semi-retired early last year, 2023, I was given the blessing of space and time to just sit and be in a way I've never been before. So
Yes.
all due to you. Thank you, Vicki, for your part in it.
The
But
timing was perfect.
I worked all the time, was busy all the time, had family. Um, and
And you had done a lot of work, Barbara.
yeah,
You
but I just
know?
let myself sit quietly, and I'd never done that before.
Yeah. 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 Beautiful.
Yeah. What else would you like to tell us about yourself or your journey or what you do with people?
Um, because I keep saying the word believe, but I know that humans are going through a time period where there is a huge ascension possibility. And that word ascension is tossed around quite a bit. So what I'll say about that is ascending from the program of the human. And that's why I changed my business name from Your Life Expressions to Embracing Humans, because of that big, huge disconnect between the spirit and the human. They have been separate for too long, and that's what's causing so much of our problem, is that disconnect. The only way that we could go toward spirituality is through religion, and that system is falling apart and being transformed and transfigured. Yay, because it needs more love. So we need to have that combination of who we truly are. We are living at a time where it is absolutely necessary for us to do so if we don't want to suffer. And because I have suffered quite a bit in my lifetime, it made me into an amazing spiritual counselor, but I don't want to learn that way anymore. And I've discovered that you don't have to learn that way anymore, that you can heal through joy. It balances out, but the beginning of the journey was just freaking hell, as you know. And that's a hard way. That's a hard way to learn. And I went that path, most of us have. But I know now, and I've worked with my clients enough to know now that that's also very possible, that our growth can come from joy. Source is constantly dangling joy in our reach, always.
Mhm.
And the more healed we are, the more accessible it is to us. It's always there. It's just that, I've spent most of my life just walking around in a daze. They don't call it sleepwalking for nothing. I mean, it is what that is. That's why they call it awakening, because we were freaking asleep. And so the one thing I'm passionate about is people's emancipation, humans' emancipation. And what are they being emancipated from? There's only one thing. And Louise Hay used to get kind of, prickly about this. She says, it's so simple. It is just so simple. And it is. It is so simple. And it's just about self-love. But that program has to be gotten to. We're innocent and we deserve absolute unconditional love.
Right. And that's easy to say and very hard to do. I've had client after client who
I know.
we could go into depth for years working together and try to understand and analyze and figure out what happened here, what happened, as if that would provide the release. And
Yeah.
it didn't quite many times, because it is a whole different sort of level or shift of learning. And there's something about frequencies and energies and all sorts of things going on in the quantum world, I believe, that help us, as well as spirit or source. And the one thing I want to say about you that I've noticed is that and if you're not ready for the journey that Vicki or someone like Vicki might take you on, that's perfectly fine. And in fact, it may be quite easy or easier sometimes than that deep stuff. And I've never experienced judgment with you about that. When you say
No.
unconditional love, you're so good at that. And
No.
we learn to be unconditionally loving of ourselves without ever having a human do that for us. That's what
Yeah.
I used to think. Oh yeah, but if our parents were unconditionally loving, then we learn it, right? Human beings, we're conditional people, and we might love our dogs unconditionally, but humans, we get into conflict and we have energy with and stresses and all that. So I don't know if you could speak to that some
Well, I
more.
can, because I don't know if there's ever been anybody on this earth, including mothers, who have loved unconditionally.
Mm-mm.
And the reason I say that is because I don't think it's possible to love unconditionally unless you've done your own work. And when I say done your own work, you've cleared away the trauma of being a human. I mean, you don't even have to have trauma, but we've all had trauma. If we're human, if we're in the physical, we've had trauma because we came from spirit and we came into physical. And that is a hard thing to do. Then all you have to do is have a parent that's unawakened, or, had a hard day at work, and that child has been traumatized. So we have all been traumatized. We've all been hurt. We've all been neglected. We've all not been loved enough. And so the only way that I see, that's why I'm so passionate about this work, is the only way I ever see humans evolving into our fullest potential, our fullest possibility, our full self-realization, is by healing the wound of being human, because there's a big wound there. And religion has created this disconnect, and spirituality is bringing us back, but it takes work, and not all of us are going to go. And I've had people, and I'm sure you have too, Barbara, where somebody called me a number of years ago and said, I've had your brochure up on my computer for 5 years. But Spirit, every time she glanced at that, Spirit worked on her, and she stayed with me and she did amazing. But it took her 5 years to ease up to it. And I have people just freaking avoid me. I mean, just like I'll be in the grocery store and they're woof, because it's scary and they sense and it's not anything special about me. I had to go deep. I had to go deep. I was required to go deep with some really, really hard things. And so I made it and didn't kill myself, which is good. And so now I can be a healer, which is great. But it takes that, and I tell a lot of parents, I'm like, I don't want to, they'll say, I don't want my child to suffer what I suffered. And I'm like, it's too late. It's too late.
You both-
You've already done the damage. I mean, it's just that way. And we have to admit that, this pressure for women to be good mothers, God, I thought that source was going to move me toward, mother-daughter work. And I've done a lot of that on my own, and I've done that with some, but I thought because it's so needed, it is such a needed thing. But I just, wherever it comes to me, that's where I go.
Well, and just to say, my husband, who's a psychoanalyst as well as psychotherapist, their thing is about a good enough mother. And that's the goal, is to be a good enough mother, because yes, everyone will be wounded by our tones of voice, our actions, our absence. All of that affects us. And I don't mean we have to get down into the nitty gritty of, every little thing that had to happen. And that's why I brought up psychotherapy, I think, is because though I think I did a good job with people and I enjoyed my work so much, what I've found since then is that I don't have to understand it all. I don't have to go there and work it out and all the details and the analysis and it just is whatever it is, and it's our experience of it anyway, and our memories are faulty and we make up things. So it's just, this is who we are, and we don't have to understand everything. And that's a whole different shift from what I
Yeah, yeah. I love that we've had that in our culture. I believe that that is definitely a divine orchestration, that we've had psychotherapy and psychoanalysis analyzing. I believe it's very, very useful. However, I think it's like, what's needed is use it kind of like a springboard. Joel Goldsmith says this sort of. He's a mystic Christian guy that I follow. That we use our mind as we walking out into the springboard. So yes, I'll go with somebody about where their wounding occurred, usually from the family of origin. It doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It could be you had a crayon coloring the wall and you were amazed and glorified in the moment, and then some tall person came in and was upset about that, and boom, I'm unworthy. So it doesn't take a whole lot, but we go on the springboard and we talk about that and we look at that and we see where the I am belief of I am unworthy was created, because it was. And then we might go to what specifically was created. What is your I am belief? But we spring at the very end of, okay, we know what the wounding is. Now we're going to jump into spirit, and spirit's going to inform us on how to alchemize that.
absolutely.
And that's when it gets fun. And if there's not a whole lot of resistance, we can get there pretty quickly. But resistance is good, I mean, if I had not had my resistance, I would not have survived. I needed resistance. I needed alcohol, suicide resistance, and distraction. And it was great until it wasn't.
Right. And it is like addiction, because we need our defenses
It
and
is.
coping skills to help us survive in this world,
That's
even if
right.
we're suicidal. And that's all good. And we get to a certain place and it's like, yeah, but there's something that I'm resisting. I have no idea what that's.
Right. Isn't that amazing that you know that?
It's just normal evolution, I think, of being,
Yes, absolutely.
but we can fight against it, or we can
Yes.
just relax a little bit. My mantra these days, people are hearing, is stop, be still, relax, breathe, and listen, 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 because I
Beautiful.
never stopped.
Beautiful.
I never breathed much. Anyway, only then can I hear anything going on from above, around me, or below me, wherever it comes from. And listening to those voices, or those spirit guides, or those, whatever you call them, angels, people have all sorts of different language for it, but it's like, what a blessing. What
It
a
is. It is.
Mm.
Let me see if I can find it real quickly. There's a quote that I found many, many years ago that probably a lot of people are familiar with, a lot of your listeners are familiar with. It's from the Talmud, and it was one of those things that source just dropped into my heart, and I've held on to it all of this time, and it helped me so much. And it says, it's from the Talmud actually. Every blade of grass has its angel that bends over it and whispers, grow, grow, grow. So that inner sense that we have is so interesting, is that we we simultaneously have a voice that is calling us toward our emancipation, and we have an identity. You know, we've been treating it as coping mechanisms, but really it's an identity. You know, if I have an identity, if I am deficient, then that voice is going to make me just, you know, shut down, because that the greatest thing that ever is, and all that is going to talk to little deficient me. So the identity keeps that voice from making a hold on us, and it puts years on the journey, and it is what it is.
Well, and I'll just say my identity was more of that wound of not being good enough, worthy, lovable, whatever those terms are, drove me to be the most pleasing Southern young woman, girl, adult that I was and have been, because that's how I knew to get the love, the
Right.
conditional love,
Right.
performance work, doing all those things were really important to me, I thought, and I couldn't live without, because I needed to get that
Of course.
attention.
Of course.
And
It works.
and it worked. And isn't that too bad and sad that that's what I knew? That's all I knew,
I like, see, but your
really
type
deeply.
of,
I mean, really deeply.
well, your reaction to your trauma, I call it the CEO approach. So here's the human and their trauma. And we'll say, I'm not good enough as the identity. The CEO type is going to do everything to disprove that.
Absolutely.
Okay. The alcoholic and the drug addict and the potentially towards suicide is going to do everything to prove it.
Oh, that is a different.
Okay. Yes. And so, but it's still coming from the same identity. You're going to have more money than the alcoholic. I was the alcoholic. So you're going to have more money, you're going to have more status, you're going to have more influence, and the world is going to say, oh, because capitalism likes CEOs. So the problem with that, and a client asked me one time, she said, so what about the alcoholic CEO? I'm like, well, there's that. They're still going to have money, they're still going to have status, but their relationships are going to be shit.
Yeah, and I used to have people come to me all the time about emptiness
Yes.
and anxiety. I think my anxiety
Yes.
was fed to continue again, to keep busy, keep performing, because that's all I knew to do.
Exactly.
Relief, and what a liberation.
Yes.
To have the blessing of the money to be able to stop that for a while,
Yes.
relax, and see
Yes.
what's really important in life.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We are, I tell people, once you get to a certain place in this journey of emancipation, you're screwed, because,
You told me that you're screwed. I'm like, okay, great, thanks. What do we do now?
Right. Ask me a question, darling.
I'll just say Vicki has the best laugh and the best Southernisms, like Donald. And she's not even, anyway, I really
White on rice.
I want to ask you. Tell me more about Embracing Humans. And I know you also have a Facebook group also, maybe called Spirit Human or Spirit
It's
Human.
spirit humans. It's spirit
Yeah.
humans.
Tell us a little bit more about how you see that and visualize that.
I have an online course on embracing humans, where I help people go to what their core wound is and provide a way to get to their true I am.
Mhm.
I learned in my own journey a long time ago that that's what it comes down to, is the I am. the I am of the wound. I'm insufficient, I'm alone, I'm fragile, whatever the I am is replaced with an I am that I am. I am eternal. I'm a spirit being in human form, doing the work of spirit to the degree that I'm able on any given day, because some days are better than others. I really want to provide humans with a way to get in touch with themselves instead of looking to the external religions and jobs and relationships and status, because it's killing us. It's killing us. It's killing our kids, because there's I mean, people who have reached the highest place in our culture, you know, have to take drugs to survive. It's because their core wound was never healed. It was never healed. Their I am identity was never healed, and nobody's gotten them there, and they haven't gotten there. And so they have to do what they have to do. I know I did.
And we can't do it for them. And
We absolutely cannot. But again, the more spiritual counselors we have out there, the more places people have to go. And that's why when I created that new website, Embracing Humans, I wanted to lean toward helping train healers and mentors and spiritual counselors, spiritual advisors. Because I'll tell you something else. Yourself in the work in the work that you've done. Where do you get to go with your stuff, right? And so what happens, and I've noticed a lot with the spiritual community, with the spiritual bypassing, is that we get on that conveyor belt of spirituality as a mentor or a healer or an advisor or an influencer. But when source is, I call the rotor man, when source goes in and wants to clear out some more stuff that is causing me pain, that's all that source cares about. And source has an agenda. Source has an agenda, and it is just the way it is. It wants to clear out everything that is causing me pain. So we need more people to be able to do that for themselves and to help others.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but I do interrupt people.
I know you do.
But before I lose it, I will say that yes, and it was hard for me, and probably is for other people, to go into that self-centered kind of getting to know myself well, because you're not supposed to do that, right? You're supposed to serve others. You're supposed to feed everybody. I even, at one transformational experience I had, I thought I was supposed to be the food, right? So I'm supposed to just let people eat me. And what I realized is maybe I can be the spiritual food, but until I really get connected deep within, which I thought I was many times in life, deep within and to spirit, I don't have much to give. I mean, I can do all the human things I've known to do, and I did them as best I could. But there's just, there's a delight. As I've told people, I don't want to start a new business, but I just want to sit around and glow. I had a group meeting yesterday with some women. It's wonderful. And someone said something about that. And that seems really easy to me, to sit around and glow. But then what I like to do is gather people together, and we can all glow together, because that shares our energy and creates community for us. So that it's not just a self-centered kind of thing, nor just spirit directed and all that dualism, but it's helping each other and being supportive of each other, particularly women, but I think men need a lot of support too. And I know men also, and it's a whole different thing, but it's just wonderful work. Wonderful work.
Well, you just described what is inevitable and what cannot be helped. When you experienced a sense of emancipation from an influence of an identity that you weren't aware of. And so you were willing to go in there and examine that and observe it. I always tell people that this work is like, we have built a foundation of cement of an identity that is the program. And this work is, a sledgehammer coming down and examining, was this ever mine? And tossing it and having it replaced by spirit itself. You are, I am, you belong to me. So you were willing to do that. So you cannot help yourself. You're not going to be able to help yourself. That glowing is coming from the love that you've experienced from aligning with the truth of who you are. It is not, it can't be capped down. It can't be strangled off. It can't be ignored. It can't be denied. It's going to overflow. You know, the biblical, the cup runneth over. It's true. This shit runs over.
And if it's
It
good
just
shit,
does.
bad shit, it runs over, whichever way.
Well, we're talking about the good stuff.
Yeah,
We're
good.
talking about the good stuff. And we're talking about, when we talk about the good stuff, we're talking about the very thing that humans have not had enough of. And that's real love. That's real love.
And real connection without judgment to
That's
yourself,
right.
someone
That's
else.
right.
This
That's
is
right.
really
To know
hard.
that I'm innocent.
Yes,
And you may remember
I do remember that.
then the second part of that course is, and Source like brought that to me, and I was like, this is only the second the only second module, and you want me to talk to them and tell them that they're innocent? And so yeah,
And
to
I did
walk on this earth knowing that you're innocent.
I did do that module and it was wonderful. Vicki went out of town for a couple of months out of town. She's in Florida. I'm in Nashville right now. And I do have some Florida property where I stay sometimes. And it was for me a bit of a geographical cure to go somewhere else and be away from everything I knew. And that really helped me, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stay there all the time, which I finally realized. And I don't want to keep jumping around. But while Vicki was gone, I took that course and it was like, oh, this is what she's talking about. It really helped me frame things better. I appreciate that. And is there,
Imagine people knowing that.
yeah, yeah.
Imagine that.
And is there, I can't imagine that right now because I'm talking to you. Let me imagine. Hold on. Let me, because imagining it, I have to close my eyes from all that stimulation outside me. Say it again. Imagine what?
Just imagine people walking on this earth knowing that they're innocent
and loved. Wouldn't the world be a better place?
We haven't even built up the capacity to be able to deal with that yet. In other words, so much of this healing that we do is clearing out the stuff. I know this, you know, there's no time, space, and spirituality, but in human, there most certainly is. And human emotions, when human emotions are, I suck, the I suck takes up a lot of space. And when we remove that, and there's a lot of people who don't even know that they feel that, but they're unhappy. And it usually comes down to their I am. So we clear that out. That leaves, that is a growing capacity now for the spirit world to take over in a really, really good way.
Speaking of that, you just reminded me, we're going to end pretty soon. Okay. Could we go into the part though about what Vicki added to the I'm open and willing, blah, blah, blah. And my body agrees. Okay. She put that little phrase in there as we were working together. I was like, my body agrees. Can you say more about that? Because it's wonderful.
One of the main things I do when I first working with somebody is I hone in on what their I am is, and then later on I help them discover what it is. And so I'll give them a mantra that is sneakily moving in that direction. So a mantra could be, I am healing, my body agrees. It's as simple as that. And so when I use the mantra, I am healing, the mind and the body are lined up. Let me replace that for a very split second. But then the body is like, gets very crazy. The mind has to come over to spirit that knows. Spirit knows that you're healing, knows. So the mind wants to join the spirit attitude, the spirit view, the spirit identity as much as it possibly can. And mantras do that for us. Whenever we say a mantra and affirmation, we are affirming the truth, and the spirit is the truth. But the body is like, I ain't going nowhere. My job is to keep you safe, and meaning keep you unchanged. I used to think that the body did not want to join the party of mind and spirit. But I was absolutely wrong. Of course the body wants to join the party. But the body is in survival. The body is in the reptilian mind. The body is in the past. The body is in the subconscious. So when we say a mantra and we say, my body agrees, now mind, body, and spirit are lined up. We have to bring the body in. And we're, you know, with the somatic therapy that's happening and the counseling that's going around, you know, the somatic approach, that is why. I think that it should, it would be useful if we put a spiritual approach to that, or an addition to that, or an amendment to that, or something, but it's absolutely going that direction. It's amazing how many techniques and modalities that we have as humans now. It's just glorious. I mean, in our parents' time, what did they have? Pull yourself up by the bootstraps, do what I say, not what I do. Children are to be quiet and not heard. You're supposed to obey the tall people, even if it's an uncle that wants you to sit on his lap. All of that, all of that. And now that whole game is up. It is absolutely up. And it's glorious.
Mhm.
It is glorious. It's a wonderful time to be alive. It's
It is.
not easy. It's not easy because so many systems are being taken apart.
Yes.
Money system,
That,
educational system, financial system, health system, all of it.
and I wanted to say that earlier, I'm not sure in what connection, but the resistance is all for me about fear, because fear of change. If I change, who am I going to be then? And entering into that unknown. And that's why I'm glad I am an adventurer, because I usually find going into that mystery space, great mysteries, is nothing more than life-giving. I mean, just
Yes.
yeah.
Just on this, you mentioned the Facebook group is called Spirit Humans. You saw that I posted the other day that a flower didn't know what a flower was going to be. It didn't know, but it could not help but to blossom, because there's this internal life force, and it's in all of us, all of us.
Mhm.
We are just now learning how to allow it to come up without having to be funneled through a system.
Yes, and for us, sometimes there's a second blooming, which
Oh,
is
it is.
on
It's
and
just freaking ongoing
yes, the eternal.
until we take our last breath.
Yeah,
And then there is still some.
yeah,
And I will say one other thing. I don't think I've ever told you the story. Maybe I did. But being in the physical is even though it has some challenges. I was leaning over, and I think I said this in the course. I was leaning over smelling a flower many, many years ago. And I almost audibly heard, I wish I could do that. And there was no one there. So I believe that there was a spiritual whatever. I don't know if they're my pal. I don't know if they're my spirit guide. I don't know if they're my guardian angel. I don't put names on that kind of thing. But it was in the non-physical, and it wanted to smell the flower and it couldn't. So smell flowers.
yeah. I've always been shy about that word spiritual, God for sure, and all
A
that
lot
other
of people.
stuff. So yeah, because of programming,
That's exactly
that
right.
means this instead of what I feel. And that's why I like the word spirit,
Me too.
source, all those
Yes.
words.
Yeah.
And we are part of that, not just it's there and we're here. We are all part of that. And I've even gotten away from saying we're entering into oneness together, because I don't know that it's oneness, it's diversity. It's all the multiple parts of all of us that we're together here in. And I do
But
appreciate you so much, and I will continue to appreciate you. Thank you for doing this. I think we'll end now, and we'll see if anybody comments. And anything last you want to say?
keep healing. Keep healing, keep being open, keep being willing, because there is a life force that has calling you toward it, and
Yes,
it'll take care of you.
that's for everybody listening as well.
Every single person ever. Thank you for doing this work, Barbara. It's a
Thank
big
you.
deal. It's a really big deal.
You helped me get here. I wasn't going to speak about it ever. But for now, I can blame it on you. Thank you. Appreciate
Big
you.
love.
Bye bye.
Bye.